Hello builders. So we're back here for a part 2, and I know in the last video I said that the part 2 was going to be the formal walkthrough, but as you can see I'm still here in the corner, and so not quite. What we're going to be doing in this portion, and through the recommendation of some of my friends who had watched my initial vibe coding session, they thought that it would be really interesting if I conducted a code review in public, basically going through and kind of working through the code, seeing what I would change from what the AI produced, and to really examine and see if I would consider it slop. Now, I just want to caveat, while I am a programmer by trade and by education, I wouldn't consider myself an elite one, because I spend more of my time in the business side of the house nowadays, along with investing and now also influencing, or at least trying to. So I also want to learn from you as well. So please feel free to respectfully disagree with some of my considerations and put it down in the comments down below. I'd love to create a conversation and a dialogue, and I think it would be really cool if the community came together and helped everyone learn, and I can create a kind of, I'll call it episode 2.5, right, where I go through the comments if there are any, so please submit them, of any disagreements that you might have, any comments, concerns, questions, and I'll kind of round up all of the comments in the first video and this video, and so that we can just all improve and learn together, right? Because I don't have all of the answers. Some things are either personal preference or I don't know any better, and I want to learn just as much as I'm sure all of you. So for any experts who stumble into this video or people with just different opinions, love to have that respectful, again, debate in the comments down below. And I would absolutely love it if you know someone who's way smarter than me or you in programming to take a look at this as well, because to be completely honest, I've never sat on the side of a code review. I've always been the one that is whose code is being reviewed but not actually doing the review. So this will be a learning experience for me as well. So if those of you who have experience conducting code reviews, love to have that experience be shared as well. So without further ado, I am going to jump in. I unfortunately pushed the code up to GitHub already. Link will be in the description down below. I'm not going to modify any of the code in there, and I'll just leave it the way it is to just showcase what AI is developed and what the code state looks like at the end of part 1. And so we can take a look at the final code. The link will be in part 3 when that episode releases. So I will be going through first, starting from the app and then working through all of the different things that were changed. I am going to have to try to remember, because now that I pushed it up to GitHub, I don't have the little highlights showing what the version control or what files were changed. So that's going to be an issue. But hopefully I get everything. If there is anything that's missed, maybe in that episode 2.5, y'all can point it out. So let's jump into the app. Okay, so let's jump into the first code file, which will be the landing page contents. Had a little bit of a wardrobe change. Definitely not recording on a different day because I've been sick for a really long time, and now finally coming back to the code review. Please be nice if my voice doesn't sound the best. So anyways, jumping here into the landing page contents. Usually I try to organize the things, and I'm kind of a little bit OCD about getting everything in ABC order. So if you just see me swap some things around, it's because my eye's twitching looking at things that are not in ABC order. I generally don't catch everything, but it's a good hallmark of code that I've personally written versus other people. I just like having things in ABC order. Too much time searching through a bunch of different pieces of code that, keeping things in ABC order makes it a lot easier for me. So the first thing is that they're noting that BG gradient to bottom right can be written as BG linear to BR. And I guess this is a suggestion about canonical classes. So what I'm going to do is, for this change here, right, and what they're noting, this is what BG gradient to BR, what it has. I don't know why it's causing it's not an error, it's an issue, right? And it says here background image, linear gradient. So just trying to remember that piece there, and I might copy it and just stick it here into a comment, right? We'll just comment this out and hold it here. So if I change this to linear, right? So that's TW gradient dash position to bottom right supports, okay? So slightly different because it adds this at support, okay? I don't know what this actually is, so one of the things that we can do now is, let me just open this up in another window. Back to our website clone here, and what I'm going to do is just copy this bit here. There was not an error, but a recommendation in our VS Code IntelliSense that I should use BG linear. What was it? BG linear to BR instead of BG gradient with an E to BR. Underneath the hood, BG linear, oh my god, if I could spell, to BR is, and I'll just copy this up here, is well, let me just uncomment this real quick, just to grab, and I'll just do that. Is this change needed? And if so, why? I don't know my Tailwind as best as I should, but yeah, let's see. No, you don't need to make the change. It is a newer Tailwind utility. Okay, great. Introduced to deliver more accurate color interpolation in modern color spaces, but BG gradient to BR still works perfectly and will continue to be supported. Okay, great. So it's optional, mostly about color fidelity. So we'll just make the IntelliSense a little bit happy and choose that, but I don't think it's, something that's going to cause too many problems. So I'll just make that change. And this is the typical workflow nowadays, right? Hey, if I have any questions, push it to AI. If it seems reasonable, I'll accept it. If not, then, it's like using Wikipedia way back in the day, when you were like, is this thing actually real? Now they have a lot of people, doing vetting. So, it's still based off of trust, right? But Wikipedia over time has garnered extra trust. With AI systems, hallucination, there's some level of trust, but, still a little bit of verify. So all of these seem quite reasonable. Yeah, we've seen a lot of the front end, so a lot of this, pretty much should make sense. Nothing too crazy here. We tested all the buttons, so they're all good there. Separating it out into a hero section, technically, if we wanted to, we could remove this and put it in its own component to make this component look a little bit smaller, but since there isn't really any major logic in there, we can remove the return there and just have it inline return. I don't actually know what the proper term is for what this is called. I usually call it an inline return because technically you could have it all in a single line as opposed to having the explicit return statement. But I usually do that so that at a quick glance I can be like, okay, yeah, there's no internal logic to this component. It's just rendering JSX, right? So all I think, just doing a once over here, I could spend a lot of time readjusting things in ABC order. Usually in the code that's being spit out, when I'm doing the walkthrough, I'll just rewrite it, in ABC order. So if you ever see me like a little behind the scenes here, if you see me like a little bit of a pause after I write class name, and sometimes I even edit it out, right? There might be a pause, and I'm like, which one's the first one? It would be gap 8. I'm like sorting it in my mind as I go through. So all in all, looks good. There's also things like I'll change this to size, right? If I see two of the H's that are the same, right, I'll just change it to size. Personally, that's what I like. I know that some people, and I've had that debate before, they leave it separate because they're like, oh, if the shape is eventually changed, if I need to change it to 14, then I'll turn it in, it's easier to change that than to have them separately than have size. Then size, you have to waste time adding that back in there. But I'm building a lot of websites. I don't think I've ever changed a thing that is of uniform size, a square, into a rectangle. So I've never come across it, and I've been doing a lot of different websites. So, just not something that I think you should be worried about. So, adding extra letters, though, yes, you could be worried about that because you slap your keyboard. So yeah, everything about this is just, UI. Everything seems straightforward. We saw it in the demo, so all should look fine there. So I agree with that. Next, user ID. So this is the thing that's actually being shared. Holy crap, this thing is messy. So let's move that there. Let's move this up here. I usually like to do ats separately because generally these are user defined. Now, what does break that is Tanstack, which uses at Tanstack here. But it's okay. Just by convention, we'll leave that there. You know what? I should probably not be spending this much time moving this stuff around. But again, it just bothers me a little bit to not have things in ABC order. So for the paste view contents, okay, they use type here. Usually I like interface for props. Just a convention that I'm used to. Doesn't matter. It could be type. It could be interface. Next, we have a helper function here, which allows for us to map languages. So they're all basic across the board. I don't actually see why it needed to be a record from one string type to another. None of these are in, like, if there was a space, like if it was Java space script, then I might understand, because you might store it as a single thing, but none of these are different, so I really don't see the reason to have language map be a record. Let me see how it's being used here. So all that it's doing is accessing language as a string and then going through and finding it. But language is just used for highlights. So let's see where this is being used in our function down here. Break dash words. So this is just another one of those probably new versus old, and it's one of the issues with using AI is sometimes it's been trained on an older version, in this case Tailwind, right? And so the code that it'll generate will have potentially deprecated stuff, so you might have to update things a little bit. One of the ways around that is to tell it to look up the latest syntax as related to certain bits of code. But in terms of this function, I'd have to go in. Okay, so we're passing in language here. Language is of type string or undefined. This just returns string, so in this highlight syntax highlighter, where is this? Oh, okay, so that has been defined already in a library. So, okay, we don't need to provide undefined, we just provide text. So I think that there is probably a list of like a list of all of the valid languages within the syntax highlighter, and so it's just trying to neatly convert one thing to another, but I don't really see the reason why. And let me just do this real quick where I comment this out and then just do, let's see here, paste.language is the type of null. So what we're going to do is just I'm going to do this here, so I can comment this out and just do paste.language or text, and then I'm going to open up the terminal, npm run dev, and then just check out to see if that makes a difference. Okay, so flashbang real quick because the website, again, pure white. So in 3, 2, 1, blinding. So let's just create here, test, and then I need a piece of code. So we'll just literally grab all this bit here and then say that it is in TypeScript. Then we're going to create the paste, and then there we go. So it doesn't seem like we need it. Let me edit this, change it to, JavaScript. Save changes. Syntax is still highlighting, so I don't think that we need it. So what I'm going to do is remove it. It's extraneous code that we don't need. And I'm sorry if flipping back and forth blinded you. So I can actually remove this terminal. So let me close this out for now. We might need it again in a little bit in case we need to run some code to figure if things are needed. But in this case, I was suspecting that this was not needed, and I was right, as I always am. Okay. Fine. There's a state here. This all looks reasonable. If there is an error, why do we have this error? If error, we're returning this. Do we not have an error boundary? I guess not. Okay. So this works as the error boundary. Okay. I'm fine with this, although I mean, there's obviously different ways of doing this. We could do like a ternary operator, sorry, not tertiary, where we can have, this be the first conditional, and then if this is true, then return this. If false, then check if it's not paste. And if true, return this piece of JSX, and then the last bit, if all are false, then return all of this. So, doesn't really matter. This might be a little bit better because it will quit out early and not run this is expired bit. So, a little bit of an efficiency there, I suppose. So that would probably be why you wouldn't do the ternary operator. But, you know, if you didn't have something like that, right? If it was just this and, you know, we didn't need to do is expired, then, you know, this potentially expensive calculation of creating a new date, right? Then yeah. Although I could check and see how many times. Okay, so we use is expired more than once, and so yes, it would make sense to do this assignment instead of having this inline. So if is expired was only used once, then I would probably just inline this instead of, you know, creating a variable and then, you know, assigning the value of this, the evaluation of this statement to it, right? We don't need it if it only if is expired was only used once. But since we are using it over and over again, then it makes sense for us to do this evaluation of the statement once and store that value, and then, you know, be able to reuse it in what looks like 3 places. So all looks good there. Let's just scroll back to the top here. We have this handle copy to keyboard. So I suppose that this is how it was chosen to handle copying to keyboard. It is asynchronous. So let me see here. Write text. Yeah, it returns a promise. So, yeah, I guess so. That's how this thing evaluates. So I don't have a problem with that. This is all presentational. So all looks good here. Same thing here. Error.message. Put it inside of the alert component from shadcn. All looks good there. And then if not paste, if there was a paste that wasn't found, that's technically another error state. So we have 2 separate error states here. This is a issue with the API call generally. That then this would show up, right, from our query here. So if we're making that API call, there is some form of error in the backend, then, you know, we would push this. If there is no paste, if paste is returned to be undefined, then, you know, we would evaluate this one. Now, one of the things that I would note is that in our query, when we look at what is being written inside of tRPC here, right, if we're handling it in this manner, right, that would mean that in this query, we're not returning a 404 not found error. We are, in fact, just returning undefined for this bit here to matter inside of paste, right? So this data would need to evaluate to undefined as being shown here. So that makes sense. That's why you would have it. That would also mean that there is no 404 error that is being returned. So let's just jump over to tRPC, server, routers, and it would be in paste here. And which paste is it? Get paste, or get by user and paste ID. So get the user pastes, get by ID. Where is, let me just control F. There we go. Okay, so UUID is not a thing. So it's telling us to just do UUID. So saving myself a little bit of time later when we go through all the tRPC ones here. Query looks good. So found, paste. Now, okay, so we do return a not found here. So in what cases would we return undefined? Never. Okay. So undefined in this case would be if there was some form of an issue. And so, yeah, one of the things that I would note is one of the quirks when using tRPC is that even though we're not returning undefined here with found paste, technically, right, data exists before the query actually finishes, right? So when TypeScript takes a look at this, that's why you see here it has undefined, right? So when there is no data, it's undefined until it actually gets the data, to which it swaps it, right? More complicated than that, right? But basically, this is just now this data type instead, right? That is what is retrieved from the server. Or if there is some form of error, right? So that's why we do have the not paste right here. And we have error above it because we want it to catch, hey, this is actually an error. And this, if there is some edge case where it hits where the query fails for whatever reason, right? It doesn't get anything, no error message, right? You're in a disconnected state or something like that. Then we need to have this piece of coverage here, right? One of the things to note is that we have is expired. I went a little bit on about, whether or not something is expired, and there's a calculation here. But if we look at our paste here, we actually do the same calculation. So this is a extra sanity check that we have here in the component that I was praising. Oh, it's more efficient because, we quit out early if there's any errors, so we don't do this calculation off the bat, which is very often what I see from people because everyone tries to stuff the logic at the top of a component. Hey, look, I'm guilty of it as well, just because I think it looks neater, but from an efficiency sake, and especially if some expressions are more expensive than others, right? Then, obviously you don't want to do it when you don't need it. In an error case, right, we don't use is expired, so it's not needed. So we'll lazily initialize this as late as possible. So, yeah. Given this, I think that you could confidently either ensure that you do a sanity check everywhere, as we have, in PasteView, and I would only assume that AI is consistent and has put a is expired check everywhere. Or we error out actually when it says the paste has expired. So there's a fact of the matter that we actually like, why are we showing is expired, is expired? Like, we're not preventing someone from seeing it if it is expired, right? Main content is expired. Let's see here. Is expired. Oh, okay. Yeah, this paste has expired and is no longer available. So we do have a check for that. I would see a better thing instead of doing this calculation here, since we already do the calculation, and in fact, we actually, error out, which I think is actually the wrong behavior here. What I'm going to do is just do what we're going to do is this. We're going to do found paste and do comma is expired to be the value of this. So this should be a Boolean or no. We're going to remove this here, and let's see, why would it be null? So, it's because this is date or null. And then there's this evaluation here on this side. This should be just Boolean. So, how would I mean, what we can do is do this. And now is expired is forced to be Boolean. let me think about this for a second. But I think that the reason that we do expires at this check here is to make sure that it's not null. So I think actually a better way than doing this evaluation here to force it to be Boolean, I think it would be better if we do not equals to null, right? Then this thing is going to be Boolean by explicitly checking that this is not null. Okay. So now we've changed the signature of this. So it is now better if we just used data, but now it will be data dot paste. Let's see here. Data is possibly undefined. So we're going to have to add the question mark here. And yeah, we got found paste. So instead we're going to do paste colon found paste. Right. And so let me just expand this object now that our thing is a little bit more complex. There we go. Paste is now found paste, and we have is expired. So we shall copy. Actually, let me just do data dot paste here, and let's see. Let's continue going through. Data dot paste. That should be fine. Data dot paste. Otherwise provide untitled paste. Okay. Data dot. So let me just copy this bit here. It's going to be the same everywhere. We're going to do dot is expired. Paste, paste, and is expired. Now there is a circumstance here where actually what I'm going to do should really actually, because I don't like the fact that it could possibly be undefined down here. So let's just go back and remove all of the question marks here, because what I am going to do, and actually, no, most of these work. This one needs to be the thing, because we have the or, right? Because we were doing paste or user name, etc., etc. Yeah, data dot. Sorry, I should just copy this. Paste, 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 and paste. There we go. Oh, a couple more. And okay, great. So all of these are fine with being hit with undefined, I believe. Paste.data.title. Title could be string or null. Yeah. Is expired as a Boolean. So there isn't actually a need for this check here for undefined. That's what I was thinking, that was potentially the case, but no, this is just because there's a null type check. So let me just check. There's no data question mark. There's one down here. And data question mark. No. Yeah, because basically what's happening here is, right, data could be possibly undefined, so we hit this question mark so that it could evaluate earlier. If it's not undefined, then we just say, okay, paste could not be found, because not of undefined resolves to true. But if data does exist, then we need to check to see if paste exists, and whether paste does not exist, then not undefined is true. So then this would show. So great. I think that all looks good. All of this is JSX, and I think that everything looked reasonable in our demo. So again, not too worried about everything. Current user. I mean, I think I'm just going to try to be as explicit as possible. So not equal to null here, and current user ID. Oh, right. Okay, is equal to. Yep. And if that exists, or if all of these evaluate to true, then this. Okay. Yeah. This all looks reasonable. So yeah, I'm fine with this. We looked at paste here. We pass a 404 early, and if this is private and the user does not have access to it, then they're not able to take a look at it. Okay. So these are the two errors that we should be passing. Earlier, when we had the expired one, it was weird because they passed a code not found. I would actually, let me look at all the codes. I think the one that would fit better than, let me see if it does it. Yeah, I would say, what would be a good one? It wouldn't be forbidden because it's not a auth issue. Conflict, no. Method not supported, not found, not implemented. Like, I don't think not found is the right one for when found paste is expired. I think it might be an internal server error. But an internal server error means that there was some type issue or some error in there. So I wouldn't necessarily say that if something is expired, and I think that just by reading through these, right, and that it's a solid list of all of the possible errors, we found that, you know, returning an error because something is expired doesn't actually fit the definition of the fact that something is expired. So it would be better if we just returned it as, you know, an option, right, or a field in what we're returning in the data object. So that's a good evaluation there. We'll return back to paste once we look at all of the other files, and, you know, if there's a tRPC query in any of those, then we'll go back and take a look at it. Don't need to look at it all at once. I think it's better to look at it in the context that it's being used. So there's actually a few errors in here, and I wonder if it's related to the data issue. So we have a bunch of language options here. This is actually the good mapping, because, right, you have plain text here, there's a space here, we can't put a space within the value, so makes sense. A list of key value pairs, though, a little bit wonky. I'm not 100% sure why we're choosing this. Oh, okay, it's because we used a select, and so, yeah, we would want to cycle through, you know, these key value pairs. Okay, I'll accept it, although it might have been easier to just loop through a object, but I'm not going to quibble with that too much. Again, they use type here. I would prefer to use interface. I think it's just standard, but I guess some people use type. But I'm a little not happy with the fact that it's using any here, so I'm just going to use user, the user type from betterauth, and if there's any errors, then we will deal with that. Oh my god, this thing is a mess. I don't want to fix it. I'll fix it for the main one. And to be honest, right, doesn't really need fixing. But, you know, I'm just that way. So we're just grabbing the type here, so that's perfectly fine. Paste here. So yeah, we're gonna have to remove that. So this is the same get by user and ID. So we're going to do data dot paste, and data is possibly undefined. So we'll just do that, and then data dot paste. And let me just copy this bit here, pasting that in, and data dot paste. Okay. Put the question mark in there. Here we go. And put that there. So this one actually decided to lump in error with also paste not existing. So interesting that they kept it separate for this whole component here, but not for this one. Okay. That's fine. And let's see here. Any other? Okay, there's one all the way down here. Here we go. Okay. Back to the top up here. We also have a mutation. So update paste mutation. This all looks fine. I don't have any quibbles with this. Default values for the form. All looks good here. Update the form when paste data loads. Okay. I don't know if you need it. Are we using React hooked forms? I don't see it, actually. Oh, no, we have it right here. Use form. So, let me think about that for a second. After thinking about it, yeah, so it's actually needed because of this portion here. So, when we provide this initial default value, right, we're using this use effect because when we're grabbing information from the server, there isn't any, remember that data is undefined before we actually receive the data from our server. So we can't use that data to populate the default values of this form, which are also needed before the API query finishes it. So we use this use effect so that when the data loads, as it says here, then we need to update the values in the form. So we can't, unfortunately, have it ready in time for when default values are needed on the initialization of the form from the use form hook here. Instead, we'll have to use this use effect, right? And that's why we also have this if condition check here, right? That if this does exist, then we do it. If not, then we're not really doing anything. And in this dependency array, we have the paste. So if paste does change when the API call resolves and paste is updated with its value from the server, then use effect triggers. It does exist now. It's no longer undefined. So we go through and we reset the form based off of this information, right? And we have title or null. So if it is null, then we just provide empty string. It should all be the same as the default values, right? If any of these are potentially null. So those all look good here. We have a bunch of these, right? And I praised it before because they put it on top. We have the loading state here, but yeah, we praised it before, but they put it in a position where, let's see, so these functions don't need that. It's needed here. So what I'm going to do is just put it right before it's needed. Then these functions as well. The on submit. Okay, I think the functions are fine to leave at the top. If not expiration string and expiration string equals never, then return undefined. Okay. When would the case be that expiration string would evaluate to this not? And there's also expiration string is equal to never. I'm gonna have to think about that. I don't know why they put that sanity check in there. Let me just think about that. Let me go back and check to see expiration string. Where is this even being called? down here, and then you have values dot expires at. So expires at could be undefined, or the string value of never. I thought it was explicitly never. Okay, so yeah, this part not needed. This part, okay, I just saw it as like never, like this, which in different languages never does. I'm actually thinking about it. Is never a thing in a different language? I don't know why. I totally mistook it as being a keyword when it's not. It's literally the string never. Okay. Yes, if it is never like that, then undefined. Okay. All right. Yes, but the not is needed. So, okay, that was an easy figure out. Now is new date. Okay, yeah. So we get the same one because we're using it twice here, and then we're converting things based off of hour and day. Okay. Why did we decide to do this part? Let me see. So parse int. So we grab the string here, and then we're trying to turn it into this amount of time, right? And then this part is the unit. Okay, so I believe that putting a -1. Let me see if it says it here. So the starting of it is -1. So it would be the end. So we append this. Okay. Interesting. I guess AI just decided to be fancy and to do these in this format. I really don't. You could just have it as two separate statements, but it decided to do it all at once. Okay. Technically, amount is the only one that is needed because unit is just using this switch. So technically, you could just put this inside of the switch statement, and it would just be equivalent. So, let me think about that. So, like, I mean, technically you could do const unit is equal to blah, blah, blah. But since you only use it once, I mean, doesn't matter, right? Like, you could add a comment here and just say, looking at the end of the expiration string to see if it's in hours or days. Okay. Great. Going back up, I believe that was the last function. Yes, so we just have these conditional JSX renderings, which is good, and then we put the logic down here for efficiency, and then we have all of the different JSX here, so I believe that all should be good. Okay, so now that we're done with the contents, I think what we can next look at are the different pages here. So this one is for the paste edit page, and then this one is for the viewing one of the pastes, right? One of the messages that are being sent. The thing I think I want to look at is to see if we're doing any prefetching, which it doesn't look like we are. So when we have a query like this, we will usually want to prefetch. So let me just go through. Doesn't look like we have anything related to prefetching in there, so let me just add it in real quick. So void query client dot prefetch query, and then inside of here we're going to provide tRPC. Let's go into this and copy paste this in dot query options, and inside of here we're going to provide user ID and paste ID. There we go. So we just need to check in the future some of our pages to ensure that we have prefetching, and that just makes it so that the queries are fetched on the server side ahead of time, thus prefetching, so that we don't have to wait for everything to load on the client side, then execute the API call. And ultimately, the goal is to make things feel, snappier on load. So, for small queries like we're doing in this tutorial and in this example, it might feel negligible, but if you have larger, more compute-intensive queries, then it'll make a noticeable difference. When we're using it with Tanstack query and suspense, then it automatically also helps with loading states, and it makes it feel more streamlined, and not, again, because the queries aren't large enough to need to do this, but you can also prefetch on hovering a link or a button, right? So that you can start loading stuff so that the navigation also feels very snappy, not just the initial page load. Great. So I believe that we use the query for the other page as well, the same one. So we're going to go over here and just, not here, this one, in this page, and we're going to add this prefetch in, and we're going to need to import it. There we go. So great. Everything else looks reasonable. I didn't really check the rest of this one either. We're using a regex to make sure that the paste ID is a valid UUID. Sure. I'm not going to argue with that. There's a auth check here for authorized users. If there's no session, then we need to redirect to the login. This function that I created in the starting point basically helps to rubber band us back to this position. So if someone goes to this page, they're not authorized, they can go to the login, log in, and after they log in, they get redirected back to this current page URL. So all these look reasonable. I guess the other thing to note, these are using type. Again, made the decision to use interface. Make that change and go into this one. We'll just change this real quick. Great. And let me just see. Yeah, that looks pretty reasonable. Okay, so I think we're done with all of the paste specific pages. Let me just clear down real quick. Then we can go into dashboard. Actually, let me just close everything so that things look a little bit neater in the side view. Let's go to this one. Again, I could rearrange everything, but looks like this is the dashboard. So we have a hard-coded limit of 20, and we assign that a value. Okay. We have a state here for a page. Jumping back into things, looks like we are using useQuery here, which allows us to have is loading, error, and refresh. So I'm coming at this from a day later, and I'm not sure why we're using useQuery. We also have this loading state here, which renders this JSX, and then this error, which is all derived from these values that we're grabbing from the use query that we're calling here. In our pages, which is where this dashboard contents component lies, we have an error boundary and we have a suspense. So it seems like Claude might have missed that we had this and decided not to use. So what we could use instead is use suspense query here. And is that not importing? Okay, it's there. So right, if we use suspense query, then we're going to leverage these two components here. both the error boundary, so if there are any errors returned by our API call here, right, getting the user pastes, if there's an error during that or during the loading state, then we should render the corresponding fallback. And so I think it would be more appropriate for us to use suspense query here and move these loading states and error state here to its own components and then import them into the page. I think that would be a better pattern for us to use. I think that we might have to go back to, looks like this one. Yeah, this one's using use query as well. And again, we have an error boundary and a suspense that's basically not being used. Same for this page as well. And I presume, okay, so this one corresponds to this. This edit and this edit page here correspond together. They're both using regular use query. So we're going to go through this one by one and just fix this. So we have suspense query here. We don't need the is loading. And in the way that we can model this, right, what we can do is create a new UI element here. So there's actually two ways, right? So I'm going to create a new component that's for the error, because I think that's good to separate that into a different file, the error component. So we're just going to call it dashboard error contents.tsx. And all that it's going to do, let me just do this, export const dashboard error contents. And all it's going to be rendering is everything within this div. And I'm noticing something here. Right, so there's this header inside of here. There's another header here. And there's a header here. And I think they're all the same header. Let me just verify that real quick. Yep. So we're also going to create another component here called dashboard header.tsx. What we're going to do is extract this portion here. Export const dashboard header here. Put this in. Get all of the appropriate imports, button, sign out button, and let me just move this to the top so that here we can just import in dashboard header. We'll need the alert here. Alert description. Okay. And then inside of here, we don't need this header portion, so we're going to do dashboard header. And then we don't need this error here. We're going to go back into our page. Where is it? Edit dashboard. We're going to provide dashboard error contents into here. And then inside of the suspense, what we're going to do is, instead of putting the loading state into a separate component, what I'm going to do is follow a normal pattern that I typically do when it comes to loading states and creating skeletons or components. I'll usually keep them within the same file, but just put it in the bottom. I think it's easier than splitting them up into two files, just because usually the skeleton is a modified form of the base component. So if I'm changing something in one, in the main component, then we obviously need to make a corresponding change to the skeleton. Just keeping it together in the same file, it's just going up and down, and usually the JSX of a component is down by the bottom. So it's pretty easy to just copy it directly into the skeleton. I also think that I'm probably going to be moving more things out. So, you know, this JSX that is pretty big will shrink, and thus, you know, the mirroring between the loading state skeleton, dashboard content skeleton, and the main dashboard contents will be really easy to look at on the same screen. So we're going to do here, create another component. So export const dashboard content skeleton. And it's just going to have all of our pieces here. We don't need this portion. I don't know, my mistake in copying it. Oops. Let's fix the styling. We have this header that we can remove. Let me remove the comment too. Dashboard header. We have the main portion, right? And I think that what we'll do after we look at the rest of the logic, what's this recommendation here? Okay, it can be rewritten as W of 20. Whoops, 20, not 10. There we go. Let's see here. So we did that. Yeah, so we don't need these anymore. We still have the refetch, which I think is fine. I'm not going to quibble over that for right now. We have other fish to fry, but we will take a look at that in a little bit, because I want to see what refetch is being used for. So refetch, oh, it's right here in the delete paste mutation. So after we delete, we refetch. So instead of invalidating this query, we're just refetching. I mean, for a small project like this, it's technically fine, because get user pastes is probably not going to be too massive. But with a refetch like this, no, but it is just refetching this query specifically. Huh. I don't usually use refetch because I will usually invalidate queries using query client. Is that better? That's a good question. You know, I might be inclined to say yes, but I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments down below. This is something that I'm not 100% sure about. I think that both of these are valid in validating the queries. The only thing that I don't have is putting up like a little toast that just says like, hey, you deleted something, just to indicate that there's a success. So actually that's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to reverse the change that I made here and just create a little toast real quick from Sonner. And just provide the message deleted. Deleted a paste. I mean, technically I could go back into this mutation here and add in like data and then do like deleted paste and then do like data.name. I guess I could do that. So let's go into tRPC, server, routers, paste, and then what was the name of it? Delete. If it didn't, here it is. UUID does not exist. So we'll just do there. That's fine. Let's see. Okay, so we return success is true. Is there a place where we're storing where the paste ID is? So we call use mutation here, handle paste delete. So we have this here, but this is just, I believe, just being handled in the table. so it's not actually stored in state anywhere. We really need the name, actually. So, can we do dot, then, oh no, we already have existing paste here. So all I'm going to do is return name colon existing paste dot name title. So actually I'm going to change this to title, just to fit the naming convention that we have already. And then I'll change this to title. Good. Cool. There's no on error for this. I mean, I guess technically there's this, but it just prints to the console. This is interesting. Putting the try catch block around this. Mutate async. I don't think we need to do mutate async. We can just do mutate. There, but I think it's trying to do the try catch block. So I don't think you need to do the try catch block. Huh. Alright, I'm going to think about this in the back of my head while I go back and change some of the other pieces. So if we go back to paste view contents here, so we have this loading. So we're just going to take all this bit here. I accidentally grabbed an extra parentheses. My mistake. There's another header here. But these don't include the header. And is this header the same one in this one? Oh, jeez. Well, then I can probably put this in layouts, right? In a layouts. At what level? Like user ID level? No, because dashboard also uses it. That's too bad. Well, we can just put this as app header, put it into our global components here, and so that we can then use it. Because if this is the exact same, you can see that this didn't even get included in here. So kind of important why you want to make these as modular as possible, but also ensure that there's consistency, right? So that everything has all the same components. Let's see here. Yeah, we need this. So this is dashboard. So what I'm going to do is just copy, or not even copy, I'm just going to move dashboard header into components. Save, and this isn't really a thing. So I'm just going to call this app header instead. Yes, and then we're going to rename this to app header. I mean, technically it'd just be header, but just make sure that this is changed. This is at. This will be app header. I think everything that needs to be changed there is, I think, app header. And we can do at here. Move this to the top. Sonner, so this goes here. And then app header. App header. Okay, great. So now back to here. Just remove this portion here and do app header. Great. And then in the contents down below, and then here app header. Great. And then we have okay, I guess this still remains, but this, I mean, the header is gone from this. We'll deal with this in a second. If not error, yeah, so this is the error. So we'll just do paste view error contents, .tsx. We'll grab this portion here, export const paste view error contents. Here we go. And let's just move this back. Get our imports. Ooh. I think we'll just remove this. And then router.back. Wait, did the other ones not use that? So, okay, so this is another thing where we might want to have consistent errors, right? And how we handle errors. And so we could create a custom one for each individual error. In the dashboard, though, it does make sense for us to not have a go back button, because what are you going back from with the dashboard? Just because it's supposed to act as the home page. So there's really not a reason to go back if there's an error. It's kind of considered a catastrophic error if you think about it. If the dashboard has something wrong with it, with a paste view, right? It could just be the paste doesn't exist, so you just want to show that and allow for someone to gracefully leave. So if that's the case, then it's not just presentational. What we're going to do is just do return here. We'll put this here, and then we'll just grab router real quick. Const router is equal to use router navigation, and since we're using use router, just put this as a client component. Great. And we don't need this if we're using use suspense query. Use suspense query. And we don't need these. And let's see. Yep. So we get rid of that. Push app header to the top here. Anything else that I need to worry about? And then there's the loading state. Oh, I think also in the dashboard page, I hadn't brought this out yet. So dashboard, content skeleton. Then, which one's the edit one? Is this one? So this one will be paste view. Oh, no, whoops. Yes, so that's this one. Make sure that you use the right one. So paste view error contents and paste view content skeleton. There we go. We have the prefetching here, so let me check if dashboard has a prefetch. It does not have prefetching yet, so let's just do both of these do? Yeah, they do. So we're just going to copy this real quick, go over to the dashboard, make sure that we do our prefetching. So we'll grab tRPC from the server, which is fine because we're not in a client component. And instead of using paste, which one are we using in this one? Okay. So we're grabbing this. Ooh. So we need to have limits. If we're going to be prefetching out here, we're going to need limits as well. So what I think we're going to do, copy this, paste this here. And we also need page. Where's page? Ooh, that's quite interesting there. Well, the offset and the prefetch will always... I think this can be 0, and then this limit, if it's just hard-coded. Yeah, I think what we can do is just call this 0 and just do, again, another const limit is equal to 20. But then I would probably want to pass the limit down in case we wanted to do something with limit in the future, like allowing for the user to set their default limit. But that would be pulled in a tRPC query. Interesting. Well, we'll just do this for now, and if we have an issue with it, and we'll cross that road when we come to it. Dashboard, contents, this should be props. Whoa, what am I doing? This is limit, and then provide it the types there for props, and then we'll remove this limit. Cool. And then inside of our page, we need to provide the prop. So limit there, it is a Boolean. Oh, whoops. Yeah. I had a brain fart there for a second. I apologize. So yeah, we have prefetching done. So we have that, and then we just need to get this figured out for the edit side. So let's just check through to make sure that I didn't forget anything on the view. Contents. So yeah, like we could bring this and put a lot of these into their own file, but I think for right now, this looks fine. I might just clean it up. All it is just extracting this stuff, and, you know, there's going to be a little bit of, you know, managing props, like providing the data into any components that I'm turning into children, and we have to send those props down. Let's see here. Okay, so the edit contents here. So yeah, this needs to be use suspense query. And I don't think that there's anything else that's super different here. Oh, we have a toast, and we are pushing. Okay, yeah, we don't use refetch for this. We already took a look at this, I believe, so we just need to take this portion, remove the is loading, move this thing all the way down, export const, paste, edit, contents, skeleton, and put this here. And I feel like we were missing an app header. So we have a header here. Oh, but this one has cancel. Interesting. This thing does something different. That puts a spanner in the works, because this one's create new paste, and we don't. And I really actually think that we don't need but we don't want. Ooh, okay. So we're gonna do export const app header skeleton, right? Because I don't actually want live links during a loading state. So what we're gonna need to do is create like a facsimile of this stuff. And I might just pull up Claude again, just to have it come up with the skeletons, because I could go back and look, but it can do this a lot faster than me. In the app header, can you modify the app header skeleton component with its appropriately sized skeletons? Great. So while it's doing that, I will go back to this contents and deal with the error. So we're just going to create a new file here. Paste, edit, error. Whoa. Alright, I didn't actually. Okay, so it's adding the skeleton at the top. Yes. Error content. What did it want to change? Okay, so it's just adding the header. Wait, what did it change before? Okay. Contents.tsx. Okay. So it says it changed it. Okay. I'll trust it. So that's on the app header side. So now we need to go back to our contents here. Use app header skeleton. Go into our view contents down here. Use app header skeleton. And then we'll do the same for this one. App header skeleton. Great. Did I already remove the error? I don't remember. No. So we have the error here, but it's actually being used alongside the paste not existing. And we also have a go back here. So what I'm going to do is remove this and then do export const paste edit error contents. Oh, whoops. Cool. Import card content, alert again, description, button. I mean, I think some of these are fairly simple, or similar. Sorry, not simple. So we could probably reuse some of these. And then put use client on the top here. Okay. I mean, yeah, they're pretty similar. This one also doesn't have a app header. So put that there, I guess. Did I put app header in this one? I did. So, okay. So we're consistent across the board at the least. So both of these, they just have a different error message. So, I mean, they could technically use the same component and just provide a message. So we could do that. So just call it error page.tsx. And let's see here. So we're just going to just copy this, paste it here. I would probably write -contents, because error page would make it seem like it's a page in our router. Error page contents. We'll do interface. Error page contents props. We'll do message, which will be type string. We'll need to extract that. Message. Give it type error page contents. And then instead of having this part here, just go message. Then inside of this one, we'll copy this. Right? Because ultimately, I mean, actually, we don't really need this, do we? We just go into our page here. And just do error page contents. I believe I pulled it from this message. Oh, which one did I actually pull? Oh my goodness, there's so many different ones. Let's just close. Okay, this one's completely different, so it's just these two. This one, and did I close this one? Oh, okay. Yeah, so we'll delete both of these in a second, but all I'm going to do is do message. Whoops. And just provide this. Whoops. And I don't need the curly braces for this, actually. Just provide the straight up string. And what I'm going to do is actually do this so that we can bring this down a line, because the message is kind of long, and you know, styling wise, it probably looks better this way. I don't know. You be the judge of that. Ooh. What happened here? Okay. I don't know if that makes it look any better. But paste, edit, page, content, skeleton for that one. And then we'll go to this one. We actually left the quote in here. Not that that will matter in a second. Because now we're putting in error page contents, providing a message. Oops. Okay, we'll keep the quote. There we go. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you would actually want to do this, but I'll just do it. Feel like someone would yell at me for code styling, but who the heck knows. Alright, there we go. So that was the fix of that. Let's go back to the dashboard page contents. And make sure that we aren't forgetting anything else. We have a table implementation here. Everything looked fine, so I'm not too worried about that. We have a truncate contents. If the content length is greater than the max length, which we've set to be by default 100, and I can look at the usage of it. We actually pass an 80. So I don't know why it shows two different values there, but sure. So if it's greater than 80, then we just grab contents up until we hit the 80th character, or the 79th technically. If we zero index it, and then we provide the ellipses, or if it's shorter than, then we provide content. Cool. Okay. So that all looks reasonable. I don't think, is there, oh, was this something that we wrote? Oh yeah, we did write this. But this looks like it's pure JSX. Holy crap. Just providing a commented code block here. Well, we have a couple states. Copy to clipboard, sorry. We have a header again, but this one has an extra thing, so I won't use the base app one. We have a demo notice. Oh, we have break words here. Wrap-break words. Okay. Don't know why they made it more verbose. But sure. Alright. Yeah, everything looks pretty good here. Oh. Gradient linear to R. Okay. I think we did change this the last time, if I remember right. So there we go. I think that that's it. This is a public page, so there's no session that needs to be grabbed here. So I believe that that's everything. Now I'm going to give it a once over myself to make sure that I didn't miss anything. But that was the code review for the Pastebin clone, the first code review. Please let me know how I did in the comments down below. If there's anything that you would have changed and recommended, love to hear all your thoughts about that. I will probably be recording part 3, which is the formal walkthrough of this, pretty soon. So there probably isn't going to be an opportunity for me to look at your comments. But I think that I will commit to an episode 3.5 where I go through your comments and basically conduct a second code review with the audience. So do look out for that. If this goes well, maybe I'll even open it up to a kind of open mic Discord forum where basically I'll just set up a time to record. We'll have people come on to present their comments and, you know, what things they might have found within the code base that they wanted to bring up, any improvements, any suggestions that they may have. Just really want to bring the community into this. So, you know, honestly, I've been kind of lax about how managing the Discord. I wish I could be a little bit better at that. I guess if you want to be a Discord moderator and help me with that, much appreciated. But yeah, I think that going forward, that might be something that I'm aiming at. If there's a want, need, desire for that, you know, do put it in the comments down below. Let me know, and I'm happy to facilitate. So thank you so much for watching. Do look out for part 3 if you want the formal walkthrough experience. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Until the next walkthrough / tutorial that you watch on my channel, thank you so much for watching. Until next time.